Afternoon, everyone. So we're going to cover some of the features within the Epson suite. We're going to be covering Application Manager, Insight, and some Data Now as well. We originally were not going to talk about Data Now today. It was going to be the slide deck yesterday, but our time was cut short, so we moved it to today. It fits a bit better in this spec anyway. So this session's more around how Absence is around the security offerings, securing the Windows endpoint. So security is in everyone's mind recently. Absence has been unwittingly in that arena for a long time. We don't know about it. So we've got Application Manager. It's a very old product. We've been selling it for 14 years. It's one of our first products, and until recently, the analysts in the market didn't realise we were even there. So we're now changing our position and changing our market position and really advertising more of what we can offer in the whole market, especially in the whitelisted side. So when we start looking at security, we first have to find out, first off, what is the problem. So analysts in the market are telling us there's been 500 million malicious applications registered in the last 10 years. In 2014 and 2015, we found an extra 140,000 malicious programs, so malware. Sorry?
How is it possible? There are 100 billion of distinct malicious applications.
So AV tests collects them.
Yeah, some of them have signatures, right? So one app that can generate 100 billion signatures, right? Well, in fact,
so the way AV tests measure it is they take it from the source app. So the source code, so if someone changes a slight section of that, they don't say, well, that's now two.
Yeah, because most of them are morphing right now, so I think it's
a
little bit.
Follow AV test and start reading their site. It'll give you more of insight into how they measure that. There has to be a percentage of change in the application for they say that's a new application. So a slight morph where you may change the author, you may change the comment, that isn't a different application. It has to be a code change. So they explain a lot better than I will.
If you can have a reference, it will be actually interesting because
yeah, sure.
I'm sure every high school students are writing their own virus, but still, they're using somebody else's code.
This is malware, this is application, this is compile code, so this won't be VBA even. So there's a lot of scripts out there which these guys don't even check in as malware. So if you start going to that, it's more again, so you're standard students. This increases
I bet it has to do with morphing of the signatures, and you have pretty much the same engine that morphs itself.
Okay. So Gartner are telling us that attackers are circumventing and creating more ways to get around our current security protocols. There's also always the antivirus is out there, we use it, and Gartner tells us, well, people are getting around it. We see that every day. And the antivirus companies are telling us that they're fighting a losing battle. Symantec came out last year and said antivirus is dead. Where's that put us? Cybercrime is now the second most reported economic crime. 32% of those surveyed by PwC were affected in last year, and they think in the next 2 years, 34 of those surveyed said they expect to have to register against cybercrime. So what are we doing? Using antivirus. Antivirus is 34 years old. First antivirus was wrote by Ross Greenberg in 1982 called Flushot. It was the first commercial antivirus product sold. He actually carried on developing it for about 7 years, made quite a few different iterations, and then towards the end of that, he actually went back and said that the first antivirus version I sent was better than the last ones because it got as antivirus gets more complex, you almost want to get simpler. Forbes, day zero, only 51% of AV scanners detected new malware. They're guessing. If it's a 50-50 guess, do you want that in your environment? Also from Forbes, the 1% of malware that is hard to detect either was never detected or it took up to a month to stop that in the environment. That works out to 1,400 items of malware in the wild, undetected. That's it again. So what should we be doing? ASD, so the Australian Defence, they expect that 85% of cyber intrusions could have been prevented by following 4 simple things. Application whitelisting, patching your applications, patching your OS, and removing administrative privileges. So now we've gone from 51 to 85. Simple math. Gartner, put in some additional controls, reduce your admins. Just a quick comment from NIST, so everyone's aware. Antivirus blocks bad activity and permits everything else, whereas application whitelisting is permit good activity. You know what's going on. In your environment, you know what applications should be running. So let them run, and only let them run. SANS have just recently released this lovely little image at the top. Patch, catch, match. Reduce by, and then you can start reducing all those by 85%. As you all are very aware, we've recently been acquired by Landesk. So we follow those 4 items that SANS and the Australian Defence are saying. With Landesk proposition, we now can patch the operating systems, we can patch the applications. Whitelisting is done by both AppSense and Landesk, they combine, and privilege management is run by our products in AppSense. So that's set the scene. I'm just going to run some demos. First off, I'll show you some insight. So AppSense's Insight is a reporting tool. It runs on the endpoint. And how does this help? So we can discover which systems have local admin accounts. We can anticipate the user's impact by removing admin rights out of your environment. We can tell you what applications have been installed on those endpoints. So anything that required admin rights to run, to install, and how many employees and which devices run which Windows OSs. Knowing with your exposure of OS will give you a better understanding of how patching should come in. Obviously everything requires different things. I'm just going to dive into my demo. This is our Insight dashboard. So the Insight appliance runs on FreeBSD. The Windows client is a small client. It has a very small configuration. It is pushed through from the appliance. With the agent itself, you can configure different collections. These are out-of-box collections. The agent collects the different information that you requested, builds a JSON file and sends it back to the appliance to then provide this information for an Elasticsearch. So we're using quite a few new technologies for us, so a bit of Linux in there, watching Windows and the client itself, which we know quite well. So just run through some of the reports which we have been using to discern some of this information. So first off is who's logging on. So these people are logging on to the machine with admin rights. So I now know everyone that's logging in that shouldn't really have those permissions. So we can discern this person here is logging in 26 times using admin. We don't want that, we need to start looking at that person, see how we can remove those rights. Removing admin rights isn't a simple process. It's almost pinpoint to start with, because you'll have a resistance of people saying, I need admin rights because I need to do this, I need admin rights because I need to do that. But knowing who those individuals are helps you start building the case to get rid of it. Just by simply knowing who's using these rights, you can then start determining with this report those applications that actually require admin rights. So as you can see here, GoToMeeting, this requires admin rights because it needs to install virtually every time you launch it. GoToMeeting is one of the worst applications we've come across, that every time you launch it says I need to update, it goes and update, it needs to reinstall, and then you can use the thing. So they're continually updating the product. We also find reason why GoToMeeting is because that's what we use at Absence. There's all the companies who use things like WebEx. And WebEx is very similar to a web application that always updates and keeps updating. Again, it requires admin rights. With this, we now know these applications require the rights, so we can start looking at what the application privilege that we need to increase through application management, which should be later. Now we start looking at the app usage, so we're collecting every application that launches. So by knowing what applications are being launched, we can start seeing what in our environment could be rogue. So with an application in here, then suddenly runs off this chart that you don't know. That gives you an indication that you've got some rogue applications in your environment you may want to start looking at. So having this information to hand helps you build a security platform to remove the risk in your environment. One of the more interesting reports are those that have been installed. So obviously, as you know, to install an application, you need admin rights. But why are we doing this? Some things are quite valid. So at Absence, we want you to start installing things as admin. There's our insight agent that our people are installing on their boxes. There's a Data Now agent which people are installing. So we can see that people are installing these things with the rights they require. But we can again, with Application Manager, increase the privileges of those applications so they can be installed without that user having full access to the box. And lastly, on these reports, our operating systems. So one of the things everyone knows about Absence, we help with migrations from one OS to another. Knowing how many of people are actually using an OS helps you then start moving and migrating people. This on an overlay will tell you, first of all, the bitness, how many computers in that area, when the last event happened. And just start moving, we can show different bitnesses here and here. The product itself allows filters, so we can add filters to this report. And we can also add many options on each report to generate what you want to see and how you want to see it. Every report generated from this also allows them to be exported, printed and emailed.
Without the bar charts getting messed up.
Correct, that's raw data. So what I can do, or CSV, you can do what you like with them. So one of the things we talked about yesterday was Landes extraction. So we are pushing more of these exported data to be able to plug into the extraction tool. So with that, it's a full reporting database. There's far more capability we have here. So we can extract that data even greater. There's future plans to be plugging us more into consumer between applications. Any questions before I move on?
A quick question, just about the example you gave regarding admin rights. So obviously it's a manual process. You're recording who's got them,
Yeah.
and then you're operating a manual process to decide who should. Wouldn't an option be to dynamically upfront provide these rights and then have the ability to dynamically take them away? So because ultimately it comes down to one thing, doesn't it? The whole security thing is either you allow or you block. And then the question arises in terms of the user experience, how do you get to that middle ground where you're not being too prescriptive, but then you're also providing control?
Yeah,
So I'm just interested, if you're going to do this manually, how do if you look at it, everyone's scared now, ransomware, viruses, etc., and the default kind of stance is let's whitelist everything. So obviously there's implications if you do that, because if you whitelist, then you're probably going to have an unhappy user. So I'm just interested what your strategy is to address that. You know, because you obviously, if you take that approach and you say whitelisting, then how do you address the implications of doing that?
Okay, so let's pull that back. Let's just drill through some of that first. So dynamically updating and changing. So the ability to use insights to then generate a application manager configuration. So kind of where you're talking there. Or are we talking about application manager requesting the ability on the endpoint saying, I want to use this application?
I'm referring to the ability to kind of dynamically provide administrative privileges at an application level, dynamically. So,
yeah, I think we can do that. It's probably easier for Yorick. When Yorick does his application manager demo, then we can clear how we do that. So yeah, we can.
But in terms of the user requesting that, how would that work?
We'll show you when we move on to the application manager section. We'll show you how all that works. At the moment, it's just the insight showing on the monitor.
I think your question is more about the whitelist method being very restrictive, so you need to manually add everything to the whitelist.
No, it's if you put a whitelist policy. Firstly, you report, so you see what who's got the wrong privileges. You then put in a whitelist policy too, and then surely if you do that, then there's going to be an implication from the user, because obviously people are there to work and be productive, and so you then get a reaction because people want to have access to stuff.
Okay.
How do you address that? That's what I'm.
I'll cover that off in my demo.
Yeah, it'll only explain in the application manager section.
Just neatly falls onto application manager. So, what's application manager going to do to help with our security issues? So, zero-day malware and ransomware detection. We are going to use application manager to remove admin rights with no productivity loss. Restriction of local admins on your laptops and desktops and any obviously VDI environments, and extensive auditing of app and the privileged activity. So with application manager, we know when we block and we raise an event for that. Those events can be plugged back into Insight, so we can start reporting onto that. So Insight allows other reports to be customized from our applications. So historically, with application manager, our events would end up in the management server, and you'd see lots of events in there that we'd rely on you to take them out and do something with them. We're now giving you the ability to take those events out and put them as a custom report inside Insight to start seeing what applications are being blocked. It gives you more reporting capabilities to understand more what's going on in your environments.
Okay.
Demo time.
Demo time. So Billy explained about having insight to get all the information in the appliance. If you So what I want to show you is that how we can use Application Manager in terms of configuring the product, basically on the fly, and then show you what the impact is for the end user, especially in your question. So just one step back is that if you look at the Windows operating system itself, it's pretty well protected for installation. So setup, MSIs, MSPs, etc. will be blocked if the user is just a regular user. But if you look at the ransomware examples, for example, so the CryptoLockers, there's something that's being downloaded, for example, via a Hotmail account or an Outlook account. Somebody sent me an email. In my case, I've got an application here that's called Please Run Me. It's not really visible on the remote. I'm Firefox, please run me. So I'm really anxious to run that, of course. What happens in a situation, for example, with CryptoLocker or malware ransomware, is that this just extracts itself. So if you look at self-extracting applications or portable applications, it just extracts itself. In my case, it's actually a portable Firefox. So in my case, I think everything is just running fine. I've got no internet connection here, but basically what happened on the background is that in this installation there was another rogue application, and in my case that was called a application malicious code. It's here, and I can show you it's running in the background. So Windows doesn't protect this. Antivirus could potentially detect this, but it's also, what Billy explained, it's basically blocking the bad.
So sorry, I'm going to interrupt on that one.
Yeah.
In this particular case, Windows can protect that, because I can use obviously the app blocker or in Windows 10
Yeah.
device locker functionalities
Yeah.
to essentially stop both the executable and the libraries.
Correct.
So are you going to modify that functionality of the actual operating system's code and fix that profile, or are you essentially putting a separate app blocker layer into the operating system?
Yeah, I will come back to the app blocker at the end of my demo, but it's that's a good question because we're doing something else for the whitelist method. Just one sec. Another example, for example, is that the crypto locker is that basically it's just a Word document. It's containing a macro, so just for sake of the demo, I just create one here. That is basically, in my case, just a VBA script that's downloading my malicious code again from my domain controller. But as you can see, if I just save this, just close this down, open up my Word again, it should about to download malicious code, starting malicious code, you're screwed. In my case, now again, my malicious code is running. And again, I can show you that's, even though without any prompt to the end user, I can run code in this case. Of course, you got the macro security, so any end user is really anxious to click that really that yellow button to allow the application.
Right, but in your demonstration again, you're requiring that to be another process that's launched, not a process running inside the actual VBA. So if I
So
sign
it's
the VBA and then set my policy to say that only VBAs that are signed
Yeah.
can execute, then I've circumvented this scenario.
Yes, yeah, if you want to lock it down in that case, yeah. In this case, it just does a normal run of an executable.
So go back to process.
Yeah. So what we can do with Application Manager is that if I open up the console, is that what we, sorry, just want to show you something else first. So what we can do is based on who installed the application or downloaded or introduced the application, we can identify if that's we call it a trusted owner. And a trusted owner is a NTFS ownership. So if I look at my I'm Firefox, please run me, go to security, advanced, I can see that my finance user has introduced this application. But my finance user is not a trusted owner, at least we call it a trusted owner. A trusted owner is an account that you trust to install software in your environment, like SCCM, a local admin, or specific account that you run to install software. So what we do with our trusted ownership is that if I go into the console, we've got an option that's called trusted ownership. I can enable that, and basically what this does is a whitelist for me, but it's not a static whitelist. It's basically a dynamic whitelist based on who introduces software into the environment. I'm allowed to run it or not. So in this case, just enable that one, save my config, go back to my user session, double click, I'm not allowed to run it. This is solely based on the ownership of the file, preventing starting the application.
But even admins can be idiots and download the wrong thing.
Are idiots, not can be, definitely are idiots most of the time.
Yeah,
Right, and so it's definitely at the whim of your trusted users. So you're still, I mean, you're only as good as the people you pick, right?
indeed.
Okay, I just wanted to make, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
be
yeah.
critical, I just want to make sure I
No, no, no.
understand.
Yeah,
And that's why
so-
we've got our privilege management, so
Yeah.
we don't need users to be admins. So we can stop
Right.
all users being admins, and then we can control what we
Yeah.
do with the application
Yeah,
manager.
okay, thanks.
And similar to what we do, for example, with the macro running. So we don't prevent the download of the executable, but actually then we prevent running the executable. So without any pre-knowledge, we can stop the application from running. And therefore, basically, it's a whitelist. I got a whitelist with knowledge up front.
Do you audit?
Sorry?
Do I get an audit of what applications that trusted user has?
It's not,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's not application based, it's owner based. So you only allow files to run if they're owned by a trusted owner. It doesn't matter who's
Can I audit that? Can I go back and get an audit log? If I need to go back and do a check because
Yeah,
I
so-
did this
yeah.
through the NIST, can I
Yeah.
figure out what that guy done?
Yeah, so you can copy the file. So if somebody is willingly or actually trying to circumvent the security, we can copy the file. So you get the executable. We see the hash, we see the ownership of the file, we see the location, etc. The time, the connecting device, for example. All kind of information we get.
So it's all auto-logged?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens, sorry, just one more question. What happens if I'm off network in that case? So I do make a decision saying that this particular finance guy has been put down as trusted in order for him to complete the set of tasks he needs to do.
Yeah.
But during that process, something goes wrong, and I need to go back and do an audit afterwards to figure out how does he let something in the front or back door. He has been working away maybe with the auditors off-site.
Yeah.
Where does that log get stuck, and can I pull that later on?
Yeah, so basically what we do is it's stored locally.
Okay.
So in terms of if you're using Insights, it's stored locally. If you're using the management center, it's stored locally. You can use an event log, you can use a CSV or an XML file if you like. We've got different places to log the data. Yeah.
So they're not immutable, sorry, last question. Those logs are not immutable in that they could actually go back and...
No, they can't modify it.
They can't?
No, they can't. Yeah. So now we've got a build that we can trust. So no other application can start other than what we've configured. What we also can do is specific privileges. So the problem is if you're a local admin, you're a local admin for everything, even though maybe you only need to have a certain task to do. So in my case, my user is just a standard user. I've got my business application. My business application is located in program files. As a user, I don't have any permissions on those files. So if I try to delete those files, I get a UX prompt. I don't have any admin account, so I can't do this. The second one as well. So the problem now is that, for example, if I want to modify this file, or the application needs to modify this file, so try to modify it, to save it, I can't write the file over there. So what we can do with Application Manager is really specific, add certain permissions to applications. So not to the user, but to applications. In order to do that, just close this one down, go to my Application Manager console again. So what we're going to do, in my case, I've got my finance user, I've got everything set up. I can, based on a signature, for example, but for sake of the demo, just do a file. So if I want to run WordPad.exe, I want to elevate this application. I already pre-configured a policy, and this basically allows us to modify the tokenship of the application. So add additional tokens to process tokens itself. So not to the user, but to the process. I can decide if I want to apply the same rules to child process or common dialog boxes. Commonly we don't do that. For example, the common dialog box, if you file open, I don't have the user the ability to run everything from the file open common dialog box. So for now, it's just adding this group, add and save. Now what we're going to do is that, like what I just did before with Notepad, I cannot save the file here. So if I try to save it, I can't.
Could you save it under a different name, but it doesn't hold it up?
No, so I can't save to that location at all.
Go to the location?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can.
Can you set it to the user's local home folder?
Yeah, so that could be possible, but in this case, what I want to explain is that an application could well be, like what Billy's saying, is that the application needs to update itself. So it needs to write to a location where the user, and as a user, can't write to. So in this case, what I've done is that if I run it with WordPad, the user doesn't notice anything different. Modify the file. So if you look at the date time, so it's 15:55, and now save it, I can write to it. But if I now have a rogue admin, for example, open up the system config, trying to modify that, that's something I don't want. So that's being blocked.
How would you determine when to sort of take that privilege away? So someone's manually given assignment to that application.
Yeah.
You know, how do you manage the kind of privilege accumulation and things like that? When do you decide, you know, okay, this person's had enough of this application, or you know, is that?
It's depending on the organization, I think. Because if the application needs the admin rights to run, or more privileges to run, it's tied to the application. In this case, you don't need to modify the user as a complete user. You're only modifying the application or allowing the application to write to that specific location.
You're giving elevated trust in the application so that it can actually have administrative privileges, but you're controlling the process token, so you're not actually giving it full administrative privileges. You're only giving it user privileges for save, but administrative privileges for talking to a specific registry case. So can I control Hives in the registry, for example, to say that I don't trust this application to write to HT local machine, but can still continue communicating with HT local user, for example?
Not in this version.
Not this version. Okay.
But
Yeah,
it's-
that is on the way.
But it's still a manual process. You allocate access, privileges to this application, then you'll manually take them away as a.
So in this case, it's application configuration, so you need to add it and modify it indeed. You can do it based on conditions, and condition could be time-based, could be location-based, could be if there is a file on the desktop called whatever, elevate.txt. So you get all kinds of conditions that you use to apply that configuration.
So if, let's say I needed elevated access to an application, command prompt or something for 10 minutes, how would you manage that? How you know, that's just a typical scenario, isn't it? 15 minutes.
And again, that's a different scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know if you designate
It's,
that.
there's one option in Apps Application Manager to allow a
Yes,
one-time
it is.
installation.
Well, there's more than that, and it got
There's a
demoed yesterday.
policy change request, so you
Yeah.
can say,
Yes,
I need it
exactly.
for
Even
X
if
amount of
you
time.
are off-site and offline.
Yeah.
Yes, so Paul demonstrates what we can do with our policy change request. We can do on-demand access, so either for access to an application or user privileges. So that brings up a request form, the user can either email that in, or if it's an emergency, they need instant access, and they can ring through the service desk, and we can give them access for 10 minutes, an hour, a week, or indefinitely. We either elevate their access or just give them access to the application.
But it's still
I
a
don't know
manual
if you've got
process.
that.
It's still manual though. You request as a user,
Yeah.
someone manually has to perform that piece of work. So it's dependent on when. that
And
person
yeah, we
uses
can
it.
also have audited elevation. So what you can do with an application manager, you can say, I'm going to give users access, elevated access to these applications, but when they do it, they've got to give a reason why they're being elevated. So it just comes up with a prompt, they type in why they're being elevated, and we'll then give them access to it. And then all that is audited. So that's an automatic state. But you wouldn't want that process to be automatic for all applications, and you bring in too much risk into the environment. You want someone to make a decision whether to authorize that elevation or not.
Yeah, again, the question is what is that, you know, is it a 10-minute process? Is it something that can happen in 1 minute? You know, that's what I'm getting to, it's still requiring someone to sit there and manually say.
So for a policy change request, a user will, I don't know if we've got it on the demo, when you bring the policy change request form up, the user gives them the code, they tell that to the service desk person, they put that into their console, and it gives them an approval code, which then they type back into their console, and that gives them that elevated access. As Paul demonstrated yesterday, with the inclusion of Landesk with the service desk software, we can automate all of that included in that process with the Landesk software as well.
Yeah.
And the user rights audit stuff is automatic, isn't it? You say basically you want these group of users, you can monitor it. They try and run it. They can't run it until they actually give a reason, which all gets audited. So you can see exactly what that user's been doing and the reasons to put it in, so you can actually action and then block them further down the line. But
So everything you're doing in the console is exposed to an API, so if I had an automation rulebook in the background, I could do the same thing
Yeah.
to your
Yeah.
endpoint once I
Yeah.
get an API connection to that box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what you can do is, well, you can elevate for a lot of different contexts. So you can have a user access an application when they're on a corporate network, but we can remove that access when they're connecting externally, when we've got a Netscaler or remote access. Even if they leave that application open, it will terminate that application when they change their connection. It will give them a message saying you need to close this application within 10, 20 seconds. If they don't, it will terminate the phone.
So what would your APIs then? Are they public, private, on request, NDA?
It's fully documented. It's
Yeah, the config API document on the support side. It's with the release media as well. But
Yeah. One thing I want to show you, otherwise.
Then you can carry it. We're not going to have time to do my session. You can carry it.
Okay.
I've been trying to get it in for 2 days.
So in this case, I was talking about applications, but also we've got the Windows components, or maybe services or other things that and the user needs to be able to do. So as an example, that if I go to computer management, for example, I go to services, and I bought a printer, and I want to restart the print spooler. As a normal user, I don't have any access to it. So what we can do is specifically allow the user to start or stop certain services. In my case, just going to the console, I got system controls, I can do a service control, select the print spool in my case, click add, and basically what we can do is we can elevate or restrict. So if you're looking at an admin, what you can do is say, maybe we've got third-party admins that are logging onto a SQL server. That's all fine. We want to have local admin rights, but I don't want them to stop the antivirus or different services other than the SQL server. Or maybe I don't want them to have the shutdown rights or modify network connections, for example. So we can do either. So we can do elevating for users or removing admin rights for admins. In this case, I want to elevate it, save it, and now I'm able to restart the print spool. Another one, for example, is network connection items. Sorry about that. Pretty slow. Yeah, there it is. So I'm a traveling user. I need to make modifications to my laptop, Wi-Fi, or whatever. I can't do it. Or if I want to modify my date and time, it's a live demo. No, whatever. So what we can do is elevate those components, basically. We call them Windows components. So I can do add components. I can select all kinds of components. So I could do date and time, for example, or in my case, I want to add the ability to have the user modify network connections. Select it. Okay. Again, we can elevate it or restrict it. In this case, I want to elevate it, save it, and now the user is able to modify the network connections on the fly. Yeah.
So can you illustrate kind of your approach to a situation where admin actually is able to run the process as a system? Not as a user, as a system, right?
System, yeah.
So how will you prevent that process from pretty much circumventing all this thing, right?
Yeah. Not really following your question, so.
Like if I'm a user, right, I got
Yeah.
a user identity, right? I can
Yeah.
also run as a system, right? Local system, not necessarily related to do it's a system account, right?
Yeah.
There's no knowledge of the domain or whatever. Right? There's super user privileges, right?
Yeah.
So I know you massage the processes, right? Looking for tokens and stuff like that. What will stop basically the identity? Basically, if you run under identity over local system, what will stop the process that identity executing malicious code on that machine?
how will you elevate to run this local
No,
system?
yeah, I can run the bash file myself, the system.
No, I'm saying, but how would you elevate yourself to run as a local system?
Well, I'm you told us I'm an admin, right?
No, so I'm saying we're not, the whole point of what we're doing is that users don't need to be admins. So this is running as a user context, and we're giving them elevated privileges to complete certain tasks. They never know what the admin password is, service desks never know what the
But you
admin
don't need to know what their password is in order to run as.
No, so nobody
So
else.
system
Okay,
So there's no
let's-
run as, so we're not doing a run as, for example.
Yeah, let's clarify though. If you manipulate tokens, I might not understand exactly how this stuff works, but are you executing actually under a known identity with username and password?
No, it's like.
So you just
user
change, or
session.
you're changing the tokens for the process?
Just, yeah, okay, let me show you.
That's the privilege inside, in memory is changed.
So what normally happens is that when the process starts, it copies the user token in that process.
Yeah.
So at that time, in that moment in time, we can inject
So you should
tokens.
use the injection engine to manipulate this.
So let me show you. Is that with Process Explorer? I had Notepad and WordPad. So if you look at the processes, there I've got my security here. Let me get this one. So, sorry? No, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So I've got this is my elevated application. So you see that there's a group called AM Elevated Group. That's just a custom created group in AD. It's something I created, not the installation. So you can select any group. My Notepad process is just having my normal user tokens in there. So that's actually what's happening. So we're injecting the tokens in the process. Lastly, somebody asked about AdBlocker. I'm not sure if you've seen this article about bypassing AdBlocker.
Yeah.
Making sure, so it's like a 30-second video, basically showing with like 6 or 7 XML lines of code to circumvent AdBlocker.
So this one's kind of fixed because we move into device locker, this particular scenario.
Yeah.
Because device locker is dealt with. This reminds me of the Res solution essentially, where AdBlocker and Res are both kind of pretending to protect your environment by just protecting the name of the executable, but we don't give a crap about all the DLLs that actually run in the background.
Yeah.
Device locker, obviously Windows has kind of copped on and fixed most of that, mostly everything I know. Why I was asking the question coming in here, are you actually dependent on the AdBlocker / device locker functionality of the operating system, or is it learned it's token manipulation of the process?
No, so in that, what happens here is that they run a little bit of XML code, and that basically spawns the application outside the AdBlocker scenario. So in my case, I did the same, created a similar file. So I got my red server 32 running the commands that you just shown in the video, just running the XML directly from my domain controller. So for the sake of the demo, so in a normal template, we already block red server 32.exe, but for now I've explicitly allowed it, but even though I run it, it blocks the CMD that's being spawned out of it. So that concludes my demo.
questions?
Any questions for like a minute or so? Otherwise, come find me, Billy, or Gary after the session.
Well,
Yeah,
just how far are you along in terms of the integration? You mentioned that you can do certain stuff in terms of the dynamic element. Is that all kind of ready now, or is it work in progress? Do we have timelines in terms of when that's going to be available?
So from an AppSense only perspective, that's been there for a number of versions, but the integration with Landdesk is still in development at the moment. So there's not any timelines out to when those updated products may be released. But I did have a 20-minute session I was going to start. But I was questions.
I don't know, if you have any questions tomorrow, if they have interest, they'll be sitting at the table here, right? So, thank you very much for this.